We all know SSR weapons are powerful, well, except for one, but something people will always overlook is the power of SR weapons, as some of them are actually better than some SSR weapons, and a perfect example of this would be the Orb of Avarice, as this pretty much when maxed duped is going to be the best fire weapon in the game. However, there's actually one SR weapon that surpasses them all and is a must build, and that weapon is the SR Sniper Westwind, as this weapon not only succeeds in doing huge amounts of damage, it has a bunch of cooldown reductions and also just damage increases for your skill as well, as its skill Secret Bullet will do 1138% of damage and will go all the way up to 1741% of damage, and when you compare that to a SSR weapon, obviously the damage will be less. However, with an SR weapon the cooldown is actually less as well, and what makes this weapon so good is its actual just main passive you get even at 0 dupes, which basically says if Secret Bullet hits when there are no targets within a 5-meter range, you'll be able to increase your damage by 75%. So pretty much you'll be able to see this when using the skill as well, so it's pretty easy to judge how and when you want to position, so you can easily achieve this. And then for the stats of this weapon, it will just have the same stats as any other level 1 all the way up to max level SR weapon, as they all have the same stats, going from 150 attack and HP all the way to 1700 attack, 2550 HP, and then also 2000 precision, which again is much less stats than an SSR weapon. However, if you didn't know already, in the previous dev notes that we did get, we know that we might be able to get a feature where we can turn SR weapons into SSR weapons. So yeah, this weapon especially is going to become insanely busted as soon as we're able to do that. So hopefully that'll be able to be changed. However, it doesn't really matter because the dupes is where you get just an insane amount of damage as well. As the first dupe is on paper, doesn't really sound like anything too crazy. However, it is actually really good, as it will change the skill effect of Secret Bullet, as basically the damage increase of what it was before being 75% will be able to increase all the way up to 130%, which is a massive increase. But then it will then depend on how long you do charge to the skill for, and basically as you use your skill you'll be able to see a meter at the bottom of your screen which you'll use, and then you'll be able to charge it up to do a huge amount of damage. So this right here is just a massive increase in damage just even on the first dupe, which is just unreal. The second dupe will increase wind damage by 8% as well, so obviously every weapon has this, so being able to increase your wind damage is pretty good, it's pretty decent. And then the third dupe, this is where the weapon just becomes insanely just broken, even if it wasn't already, as pretty much whenever your skill being Secret Bullet actually does hit, you'll be able to apply the West Wind buff. And basically what West Wind will do, it will increase the damage of Secret Bullet by 30%, which can stack up to 5 times, which means you can get an additional 150% damage increase. So not only can you increase it by 130% with its first dupe, but on the third dupe you can get another 150% damage increase, which is just a huge amount of increases just already. This weapon at 3 dupes is just a monstrously, insanely strong weapon. However, it's then the 4th and 5th dupes which are also just what make this weapon just insanely powerful, and also just make applying the Westwind buff a lot easier. As with the 4th dupe, you'll be able to decrease the cooldown of Secret Bullet, being its skill again, by an additional 15% as well. So with SR skills already having a relatively low cooldown, being able to decrease that by 15% will reduce it by around, I think it's like 2.5 seconds. So instead of being 17 seconds, it'll be around like 14.5 seconds, I believe, which will then make it a lot easier for you to apply that Westwind buff, so you can just spam this skill to not only do more damage but also get you this buff a lot more frequently. And then the final dupe is something that does require you to have a really well built Song Jinwoo to actually pull this off, as pretty much the final dupe does rely on you having a lot of crit stats on your gears, as pretty much whenever you do land a critical hit with Secret Bullet, you'll be able to decrease the skill's cooldown by 9 seconds. So then previously, because you already have the cooldown reduction from the 4th dupe, which will bring it to around like 14.5 seconds, you can then reduce it by another 9 seconds whenever you do land a crit, that is, which means you'll then be able to bring it like under like 4 seconds or something. So yeah, this skill, this weapon, just with max dupes, pretty insane. But at least with this dupe, there is a cooldown restriction on this cooldown reduction, as you can only proc this every 10 seconds. However, it really doesn't matter. The amount of damage you can get just from spamming this skill is just a huge amount of damage, and it's genuinely what makes it just an insane weapon, and it's 100% a must build weapon for you and for pretty much any player in this game, even if you do have 0 dupes, because the damage you can get just from having 0 dupes is still going to be really good. So then moving on, we have all of the skill level priorities for this weapon, as with every weapon, you have basic attacks, core attacks, and then also your skills. And obviously, if you haven't gotten the memo yet with this weapon somehow, the weapon is all about using its skill secret bullets to just absolutely chunk through a ton of your enemy's HP. So being able to increase the amount of damage this thing can do will mean you'll be able to get a much bigger benefit from the damage increases from the first and third dupes as well. So you're going to 100% make sure that you do this first. And then when it comes to core attacks and also basic attacks, it doesn't really matter too much. You probably just want to level them up evenly, as obviously you can still get a ton of damage from the basic attacks as well as the core attacks as well, obviously, especially if they are weak to wind damage. So pretty much it doesn't really matter which one of these ones you do level up the most. If when you're using your West Wind, if you find yourself not really using these as much, then again, you don't really need to level them up. But if you find yourself using basic attacks more, then you'll want to level up your basic attacks over your core attacks. But if you find yourself actually being able to get off quite a few amount of core attacks, then obviously the core attack will be an amazing choice as well. So then also when it does come to actually building this weapon, there's a lot of different things you can do with Jinwoo to actually make this weapon much better. As the first thing is obviously going to be the stats that you do want to run with Jinwoo, as if you're lacking in a lot of crit rate and also crit damage, then you could invest in some agility stats if you would like to. However, if you do have enough crit rate that you're actually getting from your gear pieces, then you'll probably just want to eventually just fully invest into your strength stat. And then as the West Wind weapon is a SR weapon, it does mean you're not going to get anywhere near as much precision as you would from an SSR weapon, for example. And then you can also increase the damage and also consistency of this weapon a ton by using a bunch of different kinds of skills. As my favorite skill just in general in this game is going to be the pummel version of multi-strike, as not only does this skill just do a ton of damage just in general, but you can also actually buff your own crit rate by 4% for 8 seconds, as this is the purple rarity of the rune. And you can basically apply this buff twice, as you basically whenever you do use this skill, it will completely reset its cooldown. So it also ties in very nicely with the West Wind, as it can also help reset its cooldown pretty well. And then another skill that does work extremely well is actually a free-to-play skill that you get completely for free, which is the purple rune Earth Shock of Death Stance, as this will also support in your damage a ton, with also offering you break damage, so you can pretty much take on any piece of content with these two skills combined. What's so good about Earth Shock is that you can actually give yourself a 30% crit damage increase for 10 seconds, which is going to give you not only more consistency with the pummel multi-strike, but also with Earth Shock for the Death Stance skill, you'll be able to get more damage and more value out of your crits that you are going to land with West Wind. And then for Blessing Stones that I'd recommend when using this is pretty much anything that can help increase your damage. I think you've got things like weakness detection, double-edged sword, pulverize is another good one if you're facing off against enemies that have a replenishable break meter. Sharp perception can be okay if you do need that much amount of crit rate. And then if you want to decrease your skill cooldowns even more, reawakening can also be amazing. And then finally, I guess, what are going to be all of the best weapons for Jinwoo to actually pair the West Wind with? And I think probably the best weapon support is going for the West Wind is going to be the demonic Plumflower Sword, as even at 0 dupes, this weapon gives you a ton of buffs, as you can get up to a 36% crit damage increase from its Plumflower buff, which is permanent by the way, as well as also it applies attack and also crit rate increases as well, which is always amazing. The same goes for Thetis' Grimoire, as it gives you a really good amount of CC as well as damage. The Shadow Scythe is always really good as well, because you do get 1 dupe for free, so you can get that 25% crit rate increase. And then you've got things like Radira Family's Longbow, which also gives you permanent damage increases. And then there's just also a whole other plethora of really good weapons for the West Wind. And also just to make sure you do have enough crit stats as well to help with the West Wind, the toughness gear set, as also when combined with the expert gear set as well for Sung Jinwoo, is going to be your best bet for that as well. So there you have it. The West Wind is an amazing weapon and is a must build weapon for all players, because once you can get it to full dupes, it's just going to be amazing, as I have been extremely lucky enough to actually get this thing completely maxed out with 10 dupes, and I've pulled this weapon so much, even with one of them at completely maxed dupes, I have another one. But overall, if you did enjoy this video, you found it useful, just helpful, just in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe and click the link down below to sort of support me as a creator, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!